Jason Miller tightened the last strap on the roof rack of his aging pickup truck and took a moment to stretch, feeling the dull ache in his lower back. The early morning sun peeked over the horizon, casting a golden hue over the driveway. Lily, his 9-year-old daughter, came bouncing out of the house with her pink backpack and her stuffed bunny clutched tightly in her arms. "Ready, Daddy?" she asked, eyes sparkling with anticipation. Jason smiled and opened the passenger door for her. "Always, Bug." "Let's hit the road." For Jason, these road trips were more than just getaways. They were sacred. Since Lily's mother passed away 3 years ago, it had been just the two of them. These trips gave them a chance to escape the routines and the quiet emptiness of home. With the GPS set for a remote lake nestled in the Smoky Mountains, Jason rolled down the window and turned up the radio. Father and daughter sang along, their laughter filling the cab with warmth. A few hours into the trip, dark clouds began to roll in. Rain started falling in sheets, blurring the windshield and forcing Jason to slow down. As they wound through the mountain roads, something caught his eye. A car pulled over on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking weakly through the mist. He spotted a woman standing beside the car, holding a baby beneath a rain-soaked hoodie. Next to her, a little girl waved desperately, trying to get someone's attention. Jason's heart squeezed. He glanced at Lily, who was watching the scene with concern. "We should help them," she said softly, echoing his thoughts. Jason carefully pulled over and stepped out into the downpour. "Everything okay?" he called out as he approached the stranded vehicle. The woman turned toward him, her face pale and drenched, dark hair clinging to her cheeks. "Please," she said shakily. "Our car broke down, and my phone died. We've been out here for over an hour." The toddler in her arms whimpered, and the little girl shivered in the rain. "I'm Emily," she added quickly. "We're trying to get to my sister's house, but I don't even know where we are anymore." Jason crouched to inspect the car. The engine was steaming, and the smell of burnt coolant hit his nose. "You're not driving this anywhere today," he said gently. "There's a mechanic in the next town, but it's about 10 miles out. I can tell you there." Emily hesitated. Trust didn't come easy, and she looked exhausted, on edge. But something in Jason's steady voice and kind eyes made her nod. "Thank you," she whispered. Within minutes, Jason had the car hooked up. Lily scooted over to make room for Emily's daughter in the cab. She didn't even flinch when the little girl reached out for her bunny. As the rain poured harder, Jason drove slowly toward the town, unaware that this small act of kindness would set in motion a change neither of them could have imagined. By the time Jason pulled into the small mountain town, the rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle, but the roads still shimmered with puddles and oil, slick reflections. The local mechanic's shop, a rusty little building with a hand-painted sign reading, "Grady's Auto and Towing," sat tucked between a diner and a thrift store. Jason stepped out and spoke briefly with Grady, who scratched his white beard and shook his head after peering into the engine. "Thermostat's gone. Radiator's cracked too. I can fix it, but not before Monday." It was Friday evening. Jason relayed the news to Emily, who stood beside her 2 daughters beneath the flimsy awning of the shop. Her face fell. I don't know what to do," she murmured. "I don't have money for a hotel for 3 nights. And my sister's out of town until next week." Her voice broke slightly at the end, and she turned her head, blinking back tears. The toddler clung to her leg while the older girl leaned into her side, eyes wide with worry. Jason hesitated for only a moment before speaking. "We're camping about 15 minutes out of town. It's nothing fancy, just a couple tents by the lake. But it's dry, it's safe, and there's plenty of space." Emily looked up, clearly torn between pride and desperation. "You don't have to decide now," Jason added gently, "but the offer stands." After a long pause, Emily finally nodded, her shoulders sagging with relief. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you." "No need," Jason replied with a quiet smile. "We're just happy to help." The campground, nestled beneath towering pines and a gray, misty sky, was peaceful. Jason helped set up a second tent with Lily's assistance, using extra gear he always brought just in case. Emily laid out dry clothes for the girls from a duffel bag that had been miraculously spared from the rain. Soon, a small fire crackled in the pit between the tents. Jason grilled hot dogs while Lily showed Sophie how to toast marshmallows, her stuffed bunny now resting comfortably in Sophie's arms like a shared treasure. Emily sat on a log near the fire, watching the scene with a mix of disbelief and cautious peace. "You didn't have to do this," she said quietly to Jason as he handed her a plate. "I know," he replied. "But I wanted to. I've been there before. Lost unsure. Doing everything for your kid while pretending you're okay." Her eyes widened. "You're a single parent too." 3 years now," he said with a small nod. "It's hard. But we survive. And sometimes people show up when we need them most." That night inside the tent, Emily curled around her daughters as they slept soundly for the first time in days. Rain tapped gently against the canvas. She stared at the ceiling above her, whispering a silent prayer of gratitude. She didn't know who Jason really was or why he'd helped. But for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel alone. The weekend unfolded with unexpected warmth, despite the lingering chill in the air and the damp forest floor from the recent storms. What was supposed to be a short roadside rescue had slowly transformed into something more, a shared experience between two families who, until days ago, had been strangers. On the second morning, the sun finally broke through the clouds, casting golden light over the lake and drying out the ground. Birds chirped overhead, and the smell of pine mingled with the smoky remnants of the previous night's fire. Jason poured coffee into 2 tin mugs and handed one to Emily, who sat wrapped in a borrowed flannel shirt, her hair pulled back in a loose braid. She looked up with tired but grateful eyes and took the cup. "Thank you. Again." "You've smiled. You've said that about 100 times now." "I know," she said with a soft laugh. "It still doesn't feel like enough." The children were already busy nearby, building a fort out of sticks and pine cones. Lily had taken to Sophie like a big sister, guiding her gently, watching out for her, and sharing her most prized possession, her bunny. Emily's older daughter, Mia, had started helping Jason gather firewood, enjoying the sense of usefulness and trust he gave her. There was something healing in the simple routine of camping life: cook, clean, explore, repeat. That afternoon, they went hiking along a trail Jason knew well. The view from the top revealed a sprawling valley with wildflowers in bloom and mountains rolling into the distance like waves. Emily gasped when she saw it, her hands instinctively going to her daughter's shoulders, as if to shield them from the beauty that overwhelmed her. "I haven't seen something like this in years," she whispered. "I forgot what peace feels like." Jason glanced at her, sensing the deep wariness behind her words. "It's always been here," he said quietly. "Sometimes we just need someone to help us find it again." That evening, as the fire crackled low and the kids curled up in sleeping bags, Jason and Emily sat a little closer than before. The quiet between them was no longer awkward, it was comforting. She told him about her ex-husband, the manipulation, the fear, the escape. How she'd driven for hours without knowing where she was going, only knowing she had to protect her children. "I felt like a ghost," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "Like I disappeared somewhere inside myself. And then you showed up." Jason didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, "I wasn't looking for anyone. I just saw someone who needed help. But I'm glad I stopped." Their eyes met in the firelight, and though neither said it aloud, something unspoken passed between them. A recognition of pain, survival, and maybe the beginning of something new. In the middle of the woods, surrounded by stars and silence, two broken people found a flicker of something neither of them had expected: hope. By Monday morning, the scent of pine was tinged with the bittersweet awareness that their unexpected weekend together was coming to an end. The sky was a bright blue canvas, unmarred by clouds, as if the world itself was urging them forward. Grady had called to say Emily's car was ready, and Jason offered to drive her into town one last time. The children packed slowly, dragging their feet, sensing the weight of goodbye in the air. Lily clung to Sophie, while Mia sat quietly beside the campfire, poking the ashes with a stick. As they loaded the last of Emily's bags into the car, a silence settled between her and Jason. It wasn't the silence of strangers anymore, but something deeper, like the pause before a door closes, or the breath you hold when you're afraid to speak what your heart wants. Emily turned to him and said softly, "I'll never forget what you did for us. You didn't just give us a place to stay. You gave us safety, peace, kindness when we needed it most." And Jason gave a quiet nod. "You don't owe me anything, Emily. I know," she said, her voice catching. "But I want to. Someday I will." At the mechanic's shop, Grady handed Emily the keys and wished her luck. She hugged him out of sheer gratitude, then turned to Jason. The children were already saying their teary goodbyes, promising to write letters and stay friends forever. Emily reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper, pressing it into Jason's hand. "If you ever want to visit, we'd love that. My sister's letting us stay long-term. It's not far from here, and I meant it. I want to repay your kindness, even if it takes a lifetime." Jason opened his mouth to say something, anything, but the words never came. Instead, he watched as she buckled her girls into the car, gave him one last lingering look, and drove away down the winding mountain road. The truck felt unusually quiet on the drive back to the campsite. Lily sat beside him, hugging her bunny tightly. "I miss them already," she said. "Me too," Jason replied, his heart unexpectedly heavy. A week passed, then two. And just when he'd convinced himself to let the memory settle into the past, a letter arrived in the mailbox, neatly handwritten, with a child's drawing tucked inside. It was from Emily. She wrote about her new job at a bakery, how Sophie slept peacefully now, and how Mia had started smiling more. At the end, she added, "Because of you, we're not afraid anymore." Beneath her name was a simple invitation, "Come visit." Jason folded the letter carefully and looked at Lily. "How do you feel about another road trip?" She beamed. "To see our friends." He nodded, a slow smile spreading across his face. Exactly. That road trip had started as a detour, a small act of compassion, but Emily's gratitude, and the life they'd briefly built together, left a mark on his heart that changed everything. For Jason and Lily, it wasn't just about helping strangers anymore. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one they hadn't expected, but now couldn't imagine life without.